What happens when you commission Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci to work in the same room on different pieces of art? Painted between 1509 and 1511 by Raphael, the school of Athens represents Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael himself all in one picture. And the reason for that is simple. In the early 1500s, the three painters cohabitated Rome for a short period of a few months. In a climate where artistic competition was at its highest because of the frequent commands from the Pope, this is a fascinating and rare occurrence in history. What did these three revered masters do during these months? How did they interact? And what can we learn from it in the age of AI and visual saturation? Part 1. Reputation, Relatability. At the end of the year 1512, Michelangelo was on everyone's mind in Rome. With an unreal gift for sculptures, he claimed to be born to be a sculptor. A brilliant but tormented mind, he would reach his prime a few years later with his heart-wrenching Pieta and the jaw-dropping David. But for now, he had to face great frustration. A much younger artist, Raphael, had arrived in Rome. To Michelangelo's frustration, the young upstart would spy on his work before they were released to the public. To do this, the young Raphael went as far as breaking into the Sistine Chapel while Michelangelo was away from his work there. The rivalry continued to advance for a while, and Michelangelo would eventually become so tormented by his life in Rome and the various constraints he faced there that he made this drawing of himself in his notes, accompanied by the words, "My God, what situation have I got myself into?" But everything was about to change for the two painters because, having been kicked out of Milan, Leonardo da Vinci was coming to Rome, and he was bringing with him his Mona Lisa and his Santa Anna. At that time, the mere mention of Leonardo's name and that of the Mona Lisa was enough to inspire awe. What do you feel when you hear all this? Reputation and admiration have a clear effect on how we perceive an artist's work. So does relatability. Leonardo, who never had a mother of his own like other children, or a loving father, had plowed through difficulties with his magnificent childlike curiosity and was now one of the greatest minds in all of human history. This humanity of his is part of his appeal. In the same way, the rivalry between Raphael and Michelangelo is both part of the reason they worked so hard and part of the reason their art is so meaningful. When we know of Michelangelo's isolation and torments, his Pieta looks even more beautiful. This is something that will never be applicable to AI. You can't relate to an AI in the way you relate to a human being, and you can't respect an AI's reputation the way you respect an artist's reputation. Part 2. Mix it all together, in your brain, in your body. Now, if we look at Raphael, he was a painter and an architect. Michelangelo, on the other hand, was a sculptor, but also a fantastic painter and a great poet. Not to mention Leonardo da Vinci. This is someone who was a scientist, an engineer, an anatomist, sculptor, painter, architect, botanist, musician, and a writer. With all this expertise in all these domains, he gave rise to a great many inventions. Among them is his sfumato technique, many superposed layers of almost transparent paint, allowing, after years of application, for this life aspect of his painting. Sfumato is an innovation that would have taken a little while for the AI to adapt to. AI, in order to learn to produce sfumato paintings digitally, would have had to wait until at least a few hundred sfumato paintings were produced. On a screen, that is, and even then, still, the physical aspect of sfumato remains inaccessible to the AI. Now, even 500 years before any notion of the modern computer, Michelangelo was saying that sculpture was appealing because it's from rock, matter, reality that it comes. Artists at the time, drawing directly from Plato, were saying that the goal of art wasn't to get closer to God, but to make life emerge from stone. In premature Nietzschean fashion, he rejected the ideal world above and preferred this earthly physical one. And this advantage of our human physicality and ability to make links is present even for concept artists, people who work on tablets, if they're willing to try. In 1508, Pope Jules II asked Michelangelo, who far preferred sculpture to painting, to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Reluctantly, the artist accepted, because of competition with other artists. Here's what he came up with. Drawing from his sculptor's experience, he was able to give unbelievable three-dimensional aspect to the forms in the paintings. The strength of bodily expressions, the absolute mastery of anatomy, was far beyond anything anyone had ever seen before. He worked on it for 4 years and became a god, named the Divine. And notably there, a great many influences his sculpting predilection had on his painting are mostly a visual difference, one that comes us through screens just fine. In this way, his physical expertise filters through even a screen. So again, even for tablet artists, there is hope. Are you a musician? Use your expertise in rhythm and melody to guide your compositions. Make them sing in the way AI cannot. Are you a writer? Then you know all the elements of suspense and drama. Imbue your art with them. Are you a dancer? Then your figures will have the most expressive, smooth gestures. Can you make the trees dance? Can you make the clouds dance? Can you make them all move in unison, like a choreography? Part 3. In this, he is much like an AI. Now there is something that artists have done throughout history, and that was very beneficial, yet now has become a bad idea. What is it? I'll keep telling you guys about the 3 masters we're talking about. And the fastest among you will quickly guess where I'm going with this. So, as they cohabitated Rome, Leonardo and Michelangelo don't seem to have had a good relationship. Yet, you find Leonardo copying and being interested in Michelangelo's David, and conversely, Michelangelo studying Leonardo St. Anne, copying each other, learning from each other. At some points, they were commissioned to produce frescoes at the same time and in the same building. Their task was to illustrate battles. This was the source of a great deal of conflict, and it was very interesting for the youngest of the 3, Raphael, who, once again, began to spy on them. Now, Raphael had been copying Michelangelo's style before Leonardo came to Rome. He adopted, among other things, the pronounced anatomy of Michelangelo's figures. Now, Raphael was copying both Da Vinci and Michelangelo. In particular, his admiration for Da Vinci appears through his painting of the School of Athens, where he represented the old master as Plato. In addition, Raphael's Galatei directly comes from Leonardo's painting, Edda. In this, he is much like an AI. In fact, he is considered the painter of conciliation by excellence. He brings together antiquity and Christianity. He brings together the strengths of all the masters he ever met. He brings together modernity and tradition. All of this to give rise to the most perfect form of painting. But what is it today that attempts to merge every style together and gains more artistic capabilities with the more variety of inputs that is fed to it? That's right, AI. Throughout the whole of art history, it's been a good thing to copy the old masters and to learn from as many people as possible. But now, it would seem that this might be the equivalent of running headfirst into a wall, expending effort to bring yourself closer to art that already exists and that AI can replicate. The task is no longer to conciliate, to imitate, and to take inspiration. The task is now to separate, to destroy, to differentiate, and to refuse. Do not focus on your flaws anymore. This will turn you into an average artist. Focus on your strengths instead. Become as special as possible. So we've taken this trip back to the time when Raphael, Michelangelo, and Da Vinci all lived in Rome for a few months. Along the way, we've learned that human artists still have an edge over AI through prestige, relatability, physical expertise, and skill transfer. We've seen that there are practices of the old masters that would best be abandoned in the age of AI, namely copying and taking inspiration from other artists. As artists, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by AI art. We seem to have no recourse, we're helpless. But as an AI researcher and an artist, I am dedicated to finding a way through the AI wave to attain stability. That's what this channel is all about. If you're interested in learning to position yourself as an artist against the AI beast, consider subscribing. And this is a community effort. I've already learned a lot by discussing with you guys in the comment section, so if you have anything to say, please let me know now. And I'll see you guys next time.
What brushes lay at rest, the screens go bright into the night, putting talent to the test. Once where colors blended and the canvas sang our soul, now the silence whispers, haste taken control. Farewell to the strokes, the shades, the lines, bye-bye, AI, bye-bye, to the visions born of human minds. Bye-bye, AI, bye-bye, AI, digital